This is the story of a man who averaged 110.99 in a losing match, hit the first 9-dart finish in a World Championship final, and got compared to Luke Littler by players who watched both of them up close, yet never reached world number 1 and walked away from the sport entirely by 2023. Adrian "Jackpot" Lewis had the kind of natural talent that makes darts historians uncomfortable, because the gap between what he was capable of and what he consistently delivered is one of the sport's great unanswered questions. This video answers it. Nothing about the Adrian Lewis origin story follows the expected path, and that's where it needs to start. Born on the 21st of January 1985 in Stoke-on-Trent, Lewis grew up as a goalkeeper on the books at Crewe Alexandra, with a first-team trial being lined up at 16. A serious hand injury ended that entirely. After leaving school, he worked at a builder's merchant in Stoke, heading to the Duke of York pub every Friday after work with his mates to play darts. He was 17, with no competitive background in the sport whatsoever, and what happened next is almost difficult to believe. "I could hit 180s when I first started throwing darts," he recalled. "All the people who were playing in the pub team couldn't get me off the board." 8 months after picking up a dart for the first time, his mother entered him into the British Teenage Youth Championship in 2003, and he won it, beating James Wade and Stephen Bunting along the way. 8 months of experience defeating future professionals. The nickname arrived in 2005 at the Las Vegas Desert Classic, when Lewis sat down at a casino slot machine during tournament downtime and won a $72,000 jackpot. When he went to collect, staff informed him the US legal gambling age is 21 and he couldn't touch a dollar of it. The story spread through the darts world immediately. Jackpot stuck permanently, and his social media handle remains a Jackpot180 to this day. No account of Adrian Lewis makes sense without Taylor at the centre of it. Both men came from Stoke-on-Trent, and Lewis's reputation as a freakishly gifted young player had spread through the Staffordshire scene before Taylor ever saw him throw. At a charity event, Taylor offered a simple proposition: "I've heard a lot about you. Would you like to come up to mine for a practice?" 5 or 6 months of silence followed before Taylor called on a bank holiday Monday, and the arrangement began. They practiced at Taylor's home, grinding through first to 18 leg matches, and Taylor was merciless throughout. "We used to play first to 18 legs, and if I was winning, he'd say I've got to be somewhere at 2 o'clock, Lewis recalled. "He'd never let you win. He'd beat his nan at Tiddlywinks." The arrangement ran from approximately 2004 to 2007, when Lewis deliberately stepped back after breaking into the world's top 16. The distance wasn't born from frustration. Lewis recognized that proximity to Taylor was limiting his independence. "I thought I'm too close, so I need to distance myself," he explained, "and that's when my game got better." Despite ending the daily sessions, they remained close enough to win 4 PDC World Cup titles together as England in 2012, 2013, 2015, and 2016. Taylor's public assessments blended admiration with mild exasperation. Adrian is a strong scorer and finisher. When he's having a good day, he can average 110. But also, he was someone who had everything placed in his cradle. Talent alone is not enough. You also have to work hard. Devon Peterson, who competed through the same era, offered the starkest comparison available. Lewis was what Luke Littler is now. The player who made the entire world stop and pay attention. That was Adrian Lewis, arriving in 2011. The 2011 PDC World Championship confirmed what the Staffordshire dart scene had known for years. Lewis was 25 years old, stepping onto the Alexandra Palace stage for a World Championship final against Gary Anderson, and in the third leg of the opening set, he hit a 9-dart finish, the perfect leg, delivered in a World Championship final for the first time in the tournament's history, with the whole world watching. His 3-dart average during that opening set peaked at 134.38, and the match ended 7-5 in his favour. Lewis became the youngest ever PDC World Champion, shooting to a career-high world number 2 ranking. The year wasn't finished. At the European Championship, he hit another 9-dart finish in the semi-final against Raymond van Barneveld, becoming the first player in history to hit 9-darters in 2 televised ranking tournaments in the same calendar year. He lost that final to Taylor 8-11, but the statement from 2011 as a whole had already been made clearly enough. Most players who win their first World Championship struggle to defend it. Lewis didn't just defend. On the way to doing so, he produced one of the most extraordinary individual performances the sport has ever witnessed. Trailing qualifier Nigel Hayden 0-2 in sets in the first round, Lewis then got stung by a wasp on his non-throwing hand during a break. He was losing, he'd been stung by a wasp, and he still came back to win 3-2. But none of that prepared anyone for the semi-final against James Wade. Lewis trailed 5-1 in sets, needing 6 straight sets just to level from a position where most players would already be walking towards the exit. Wade held a match dart at double 18 and missed it, and what followed entered darts history. Lewis won 10 consecutive legs, whitewashing the final 3 sets 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, and sealed it with a 161 checkout, treble 20, treble 17, bullseye. That performance earned the PDC Televised Performance of the Year award. Lewis called it the best win of my career, definitely. The final against Andy Hamilton ended 7-3 without Lewis ever trailing, making him only the 3rd player in darts history, after Eric Bristow and Raymond van Barneveld, to successfully defend the first World Championship title. Standing on that alley-pally stage at 27 years old with his 2nd world title, Lewis declared he believed he could win 10 World Championship titles. At that moment, nobody was arguing. If 2011 and 2012 were about winning, 2013 revealed the full and almost uncomfortable scope of what Lewis was capable of, in a match that the sport has never managed to equal since. He won the European Championship, reached the World Matchplay Final with a 105.92 average, the highest losing average in that final's history, and won the World Cup again with Taylor. By any conventional measure, an excellent year. But what 2013 is remembered for is one semi-final at the Grand Slam of darts. Lewis averaged 110.99, Taylor averaged 109.76. The combined figure of 221 has never been beaten in televised darts history. They hit 32 maximums between them, Lewis accounting for 18, and Lewis also landed a 170 checkout in a match he lost 9-16. At one stage, he held an 8-7 lead while averaging 115 and still found himself on the wrong end of the score. At one point, I was averaging 115 and I was 9-8 down, he said afterwards. You think, geez, what have I got to do here? Taylor closed it out by winning 8 successive legs and called it the best ever game seen on TV. When Sky Sports asked Lewis years later to nominate his greatest game, he chose this one. Not a match he won, but the one where he played 110.99 darts and came up short. Wayne Mardle's description of Lewis from this period carries more weight than any statistic. Adrian was a moment creator. Whenever Adrian was in the building, something would happen. Mardle added that Lewis brought the best out of so many players, which is why he was involved in so many classic matches and is probably one reason why he didn't win as many majors as he should have. The central paradox of Adrian Lewis laid out plainly. Early in 2014, Lewis produced his final individual major victory and did it emphatically. The UK Open final in March saw him beat Terry Jenkins 11-1 with an average of 109.13, the highest ever recorded in a UK Open final. That match, in March 2014, was the last time Adrian Lewis lifted an individual PDC major. He was 29 years old. The World Championship semi-final that same year showed the other side. Against Van Gerwen, Lewis scored comparably on the trebles throughout and lost 0-6 without winning a single set. His doubles conversion rate was 28%. Van Gerwen punished every miss without hesitation, and that pattern, brilliant scoring undermined by inconsistent finishing, defined the limits of Lewis's career more than any opponent ever did. The complete statistical picture is worth setting out plainly. 4 individual major titles, the 2011 and 2012 World Championships, the 2013 European Championship, and the 2014 UK Open. 4 PDC World Cup titles with Taylor, 8 televised titles and 26 PDC titles in total. Career prize money estimated at over £3.3 million, 13 9-dart finishes across his career, 5 on television, 3rd all-time behind Taylor and Van Gerwen, with 3 of those 5 televised perfects coming against Van Barneveld alone. A peak television average of 113.80 and a highest floor event average of 115.62. In 2009, he averaged 0.55 maximums per leg on television across an entire season, the highest figure on record for any player in any single year, and a combined average of 221 alongside Taylor in the 2013 Grand Slam semi-final, sitting at the top of the all-time list ever since with no sign of being moved. A career-high ranking of world number 2, held through 2011 to approximately 2014, during an era that included Taylor, Anderson, Van Barneveld, and the rising Van Gerwen. He never reached number 1. From world number 2 in 2014, the ranking slide took years to fully register, but eventually became impossible to ignore. Numbers 4 and 5 through 2015 and 2016, then 7 to 10 by 2017, then a first-round World Championship exit to Kevin Munch in 2018, the first time he had ever lost in the opening round, that sent him sharply downward. Outside the top 32 by 2021, approximately 50th in the world by 2023. Lewis's own explanation centered on his family rather than darts. My wife's got an incurable kidney disease, my daughter has got autism, so obviously I had to put this on the back burner, he said. My mind wasn't at the darts, and I've said that for a long time. His wife Sarah was diagnosed with medullary sponge kidney, an incurable condition, in 2015, and their daughter has autism, ADHD, and learning difficulties. He also spoke directly about losing motivation. You've got to have the hunger, and that's what I missed, and about the weight of 2 decades competing professionally. When you've been doing something for 20 years, it takes its toll on you. I was already on a negative before it even started because I knew I didn't want to be there. His last PDC match came in March 2023, a first-round Players' Championship loss, and the following month he made it formal. After 20+ years, I feel I need a break from the professional circuit for now. One near miss from this later period deserves mention. The 2016 World Championship final saw Lewis average over 101 across the tournament and hit 19 maximums before losing to Gary Anderson 5-7 in a match, featuring a then record 34 combined 180s, with Anderson's 170 checkout sealing it. A 3rd world title spanning 2011 to 2016. That was the path that final represented, and it went the other way. At his best, Adrian Lewis played darts at a level that matched anyone who has ever played the game professionally, and that statement carries no qualification. Not almost as good as Taylor, not close to Van Gerwen on his day, actually as good as anyone, capable of averaging 113 in a winning match and 110.99 in a losing one, capable of hitting a 9-dart finish in a World Championship final, capable of producing the highest combined match average in televised history, and still ending up on the wrong side of the scoreline. Those 2 back-to-back World Championships came against Taylor still active, Anderson at his peak, Van Barneveld in his prime, and a young Van Gerwen beginning to impose himself. The titles were earned against the best the sport had. The frustration built into the Lewis story isn't about failure. Over £3.3 million in prize money, 2 World Championships, 4 World Cups, a European Championship, and a UK Open represent a career most professionals would consider exceptional. The frustration lives in the space between his ceiling and his consistency. The the 28% doubles conversion rates, the match darts missed in deciding sets, the 2016 final that ended 5-7 when a third world title was sitting right there. The sporting life put the wider context plainly. If you'd have said in 2014 that at the end of their careers, Peter Wright would be regarded as a better player than Adrian Lewis, people would have questioned if you were feeling alright. That sentence explains the scale of expectation that surrounded Lewis at his peak better than any ranking does. Mardle's observation that Lewis elevated his opponent so completely that it sometimes cost him majors is a thing said about almost nobody in professional sport. It means the quality he drew out of Taylor, Anderson and Van Gerwen in those legendary matches was partially his own creation. Lewis is currently working toward a potential return, having signed with Modus Management and made a competitive comeback at the Modus Super Series International Pairs in August 2025. Whether that produces anything more, the record is already written. Adrian Lewis hit the first 9-dart finish in a World Championship final at 25. Devon Peterson compared him to Luke Littler. Phil Taylor, who beat him repeatedly and practiced with him for years, said he could average 110 on a good day, which from Taylor counts as genuine praise. On those good days, nobody was better. Not many players in any sport can say that honestly. Adrian "Jackpot" Lewis is one of them.